Chapter 16. Renee. Current day. Renee looked up at the detectives as she finished telling her story. Clay had been out on patrol, so they had assigned her 2 different officers, a Detective Graves and Detective Parker. "So what are we going to do to find him? We have to do something." Detective Graves and Parker exchanged glances. Graves was tall, bearded, and stoic. His expressions bordered on stodgy, and Renee guessed he probably played the bad cop when necessary. Parker was a woman, short but definitely fit with her hair pulled back into a bun. She looked sweet, but Renee had the feeling she was tough as nails on the inside. "We have a few more questions first, and then we will look into what we can do. You said you were with Dr. Young last night?" Renee stifled a sigh. She had already explained this to them. Twice. "Yes, I was. We had a nice dinner at his place, and then we watched a movie. He had work this morning, so I left at 10 p.m. "And you returned to your apartment?" Detective Graves asked. "As I've said." She folded her arms across her chest. They couldn't actually think she was a suspect, could they? She was the one who had reported him missing, for goodness sake. "And do you live alone?" Detective Parker asked. "No, I have a roommate, Emma, but she was working late. I went to bed before she got home, so I don't know when that was." "So no one can verify your return?" Detective Graves asked, lifting a brow. She understood exactly where this line of questioning was going. "I'm sure there are video cameras at the apartment complex. Can't you look at them and see when I returned?" Detective Graves nodded. "If there are videos, we will definitely look into them." "There are. We had a string of break-ins last year, and I know the complex discussed having them installed. So unless they didn't get around to it, I'm sure they are there. Am I under arrest or something until you confirm?" Detective Parker shook her head. "No, there's nothing to hold you on currently, but we do have to tell you that you are considered a person of interest in this case and you are not to leave the city." "I'm not planning on leaving. I work here. Plus, I need to find out what happened to Garrett. You will look for him, won't you?" "We will do what we can, but as a person of interest, we can't discuss the case with you. I'm sure you understand." She didn't understand at all. "So I'm just supposed to sit back and hope you find him? Are you even going to look at anyone but me?" This couldn't be happening. There was no way she was going to sit at home and not try to find him if she could help it, and if they really thought that, they were sadly mistaken. "You are to continue doing your job and let us do ours," Detective Graves said. "Here is my card. If you think of anything else that might help us, or if anyone reaches out to you, be sure to contact me as soon as possible." "Yeah, sure." Renee shoved the card in her pocket, doubting that she would be using it any time soon. The 2 officers walked her out of the station, and Renee sat in her car for a moment. She needed Clay, but she wasn't sure how to contact him. She only had Garrett's number, and he wasn't answering. She supposed she could sit outside of his house until he came home, but that would probably look suspicious. But she couldn't just go home. The center. Clay had been the one to investigate the center attack. Maybe he'd given Becky a card, or maybe his contact information would be on the police report. If nothing else, at least Becky would give her a listening ear, and working at the center would keep her mind off Garrett. She pointed her car in the direction of the center, and 15 minutes later she pulled into the parking lot. The window had been replaced, but the parking lot was still woefully empty. She hoped business picked back up soon. When she pulled open the door, Becky, who sat behind the receptionist desk, looked up at her. "Renee? I wasn't expecting you today. Is everything okay?" Renee shook her head. "Not really. Garrett is missing." Becky's eyes grew large. "What? What happened?" Renee fought to keep the tears from spilling out of her eyes. "I don't know. I saw him last night and we were supposed to get together later, but he didn't text me when he got to work like he said he would, so I tried his cell but he didn't answer. That would be the case if he was already at work, as we can't carry cells into the rooms. So I called the hospital, but they said he never showed up for his shift. That's not like him, so I know it sounds a little crazy, but I drove over to his house to make sure he was okay, but he wasn't there. So I drove to the hospital thinking maybe he got in a wreck along the way, but his truck is at the hospital. So something happened to him between the parking lot and the entrance?" Becky said slowly, piecing the story together. "Exactly. So I went to the police station to talk to Clay, his brother, but he wasn't there. I ended up telling these 2 detectives, but I don't know if they're going to do anything about it. They think I had something to do with his disappearance, since I was the last one to see him last night. When Clay came here, did he give you a card or put his contact information on the police report?" Becky pursed her lips together and tilted her head. "You know, he might have. Let's go look." "Don't you need somebody to man the desk, though?" Renee asked. Becky chuffed sadly. "We still haven't had much business since the incident. I was hoping once the window got fixed it would pick back up, but it's been crickets. Besides, we'll just be in the office, so I can still see the entrance." Renee followed Becky into the office and stood helplessly as she rifled through paperwork on the desk. "I know it's here somewhere," Becky said. "Aha, here it is." She held up the police report, and sure enough, there was a business card attached to it. "Here you go. Give him a call and let me know if you need anything." "Thanks, I will, and I'll be happy to stay and answer phones when I'm done." Becky shrugged. "If they ring." Renee said a quick prayer that business would pick back up for Becky, and then she dialed the number on the card, hoping that Clay would be able to answer it. "This is Officer Young. How can I help you?" "Oh, thank goodness," Renee said, sighing with relief. "Officer Young, it's Renee. I work with Garrett at the hospital." "I know who you are, Renee. What can I do for you?" "Something has happened to Garrett. I reported it to the police, but I don't know if they're going to look for him. They think I had something to do with his disappearance. I need your help." "Where are you now?" Clay asked. "I'm at the pregnancy center." "Great. Stay there. I'll be there in 5 minutes." Renee hung up the phone and stared at it for a moment. Her whole body was shaking, but Clay was coming. He'd be able to help her figure this out.